Oh, I'm just going to go ahead and start. All righty. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the final installment of conversations for PAOCC Women's Her Story Month commemoration. Tonight's theme is Still Here, the Power of Self-Determination, and we are talking about the power of self-determination through educational, agricultural, and food work. So really excited to be here tonight with our panelists to talk about these topics. And so I'll get right into it with introductions. And so first we have Mama HANIFA ADJUMAN, and let's talk a little bit about Mama HANIFA. Let's introduce her. So Mama HANIFA ADJUMAN is the mother of two adult biological sons, excuse me. So we've got Ezekiel and we've got Ojere, and a bonus son by marriage, Ano ADJUMAN, and she is the grandmother to three grandsons, and that's Raylan, Rayshawn, and Amari. She is the parenting grandmother of a 16-year-old dynamic granddaughter, Nakaya. She is also a community mother and grandmother to many. And one of her favorite HANIFA-isms is God brings children through you, and sometimes God brings children to you. And I think that could not be more true for Mama HANIFA if you know her well. She taught at one of Detroit's premier African-centered institutions, of which I am also a product. That's Inter-Roma Institute. She taught there for 12 years. Mama HANIFA is also a founding member of the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network, a coalition of organizations and individuals working together to build food sovereignty. In Detroit's Black community. She also serves as the organization's education and outreach director and coordinates the Food Warriors program. The Food Warriors Youth Development Program introduces young people to urban gardening and teaches health and nutrition education with an emphasis on food justice, right? Because we know that those things are connected. The Food Warriors program is rooted in traditional African values, collectively known as the Nguzo Saba. And so Mama HANIFA, as we can see, she has been a member of PAOCC for 43, almost 44 years. And she joined at Shrine Number 10 in Houston, Texas in November of 1978. And she relocated to Shrine Number 1 in 1981. She was also a 2010 recipient of the Woodrow Smith Community Service Award and the 2015 recipient of the Women of Nia Bishop Abi Sisters in Service Award. She is a founding member of the Great Water Village Ritual Society and ADASI, which is the African Diaspora Ancestral Commemoration Institute. ADASI, for those of us who may not be familiar, is an organization that hosts every year an ancestral commemoration to honor, acknowledge, and give gratitude to our ancestors for their tremendous work and sacrifice. Her greatest joy is reconnecting young people to nature because she believes it is in nature that we find ourselves closest to God. And so one of her favorite quotes from, I'll call him a naturist, is, and the person I'm talking about is Dr. George Washington Carver. He says, "I love to think of nature as an unlimited broadcasting station through which God speaks to us every hour if we only tune in. She loves reading, teaching, and learning." Good evening, Mama Hanifa.
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay, I'm going to continue on and introduce my mom, Ife Thomas, who has been a member of the PAOCC for 28 plus years, we joined in 1994 in Detroit, Michigan, which is our current home, also Detroit, Michigan. My mother is a person who enjoys learning, and exploring the world through curiosity. And so that is what brought her to Freedom School and Food Warriors, amongst all of the other. She's a teacher by trade. And so that brings her in and kind of creates a full circle moment for tonight's discussion and her affiliations that she's bringing to tonight's discussion. And later we hope to have Sister Wamuero join us. She is operating the From My Hands to Yours food pantry out of Atlanta. And when she comes in, we'll talk a little bit more about who she is and her contributions. And then I, of course, am your moderator. As I just shared, I've been a member of the church most of my life. Joined when I was just a toddler, I would say, here in Detroit, and have been active in both Atlanta and Detroit, and I'm currently here in Detroit. And so let's get into tonight's conversation, shall we? Okay. All right. Okay, so ladies, while we're starting tonight's conversation, if we could just start with a little bit of information about the program that you are facilitating, and both of you all are working in some respect with both Food Warriors and Freedom School. If you could talk about how you found yourselves involved, what motivated you to either participate or initiate Food Warriors for PAOCC here in Shrine One.
Okay. Initially, the Food Warriors program was an integral part of our 3 African-centered academies here in the city of Detroit. They were a part of OASIS, the Organization of African-Centered Educators and Schools. And I think it was around 2012 that Insorma closed. And when Insorma closed, I went to Malik and I said, you know what, Malik, I think it would really be a good idea if we had a Food Warriors program at the Shrine. And Malik said, well, do what you need to do to make it happen. And so at that time, we had the Bishop's Council. And I wrote up a proposal to the Bishop's Council to have a Food Warriors program. We were initially at the National Training Center. It was approved. We were at the National Training Center for a couple of years, and then we moved to the Shrine in 2015. And so the Food Warriors program has been an integral part of the church's youth programming since 2015. And we have a very, very vibrant youth program at the Shrine. Even now, in the midst of the pandemic, what we did was we shut down in March of 2020, of course, and then we went virtual. And what I found since we pivoted to virtual, I was a little apprehensive because the children are so young. The children at the shrine are between 5 and 11. And I didn't know how that was going to work online with a 5, 6-year-old, but it really turned out to be a wonderful experience. And one of the things that we did was we started a monthly food prep demonstration. And that has been such a wonderful experience, because now it's not just the children, but we also get, yes, we also get the caregivers, the parents, grandparents, caregivers involved. And one of the things that they've said is, wow, Mama HANIFA, we didn't know you were doing all of this. And they really enjoyed and look forward to our fourth Saturday cooking food demonstrations. And the same with, you asked about Freedom School. The same with Freedom School. In 2016, some of our community activists came together looking at the situation with the emergency management and the devastation that had on our young people. Mama Aneb was one of the leaders in the development of the Detroit Independent Freedom Schools movement. And for those who may not know, Mama Aneb, also known as Dr. Gloria House, is one of the original SNCC members. And Mama Aneb and SNCC, for those who might not know, is the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And Mama Aneb called together some folk and had a discussion and thought that having a freedom school would allow us to be able to address not only some of the academic gaps that our children were facing because of the emergency management and the chaos of the Detroit public school system at that time, but also to bring our children into loving spaces that were founded upon African-centered values, the real CRT, which is culturally responsive teaching. And again, Mama Aneb approached me and she said, and one of the things that we were looking at is the fact that we have so many churches in our community, and asking churches to open their doors on Saturdays specifically, but also in the evenings, so that we could have programming for our children. And I was at one of those meetings. I was just at the meeting as a concerned resident. And I eventually became a part of the coordinating committee. And Mama Aneb asked me if I would ask the administration of the church if we could host a freedom school, if the shrine would become a freedom school site. And again, here we are.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, and before we go to Sister Ife, and I also want to bring in Sister Kimata, who's going to also talk about another way. She's in Atlanta, but she's going to talk a little bit about how we, other ways that we've recognized the gap and been able to, decide to fill those gaps. You've talked a little bit about the educational, the cultural gap, the community gap. You talked about the food gap in terms of agriculture, but we're also going to talk about the food gap with Sister Kimata in terms of food pantry and providing ways for people to provide for their families that don't necessarily involve having the skill for gardening or even a passion for it, right? Because we understand that even though it's valuable, not everyone has taken that route. And so Sister Ife and then Sister Kimata, if you could tell us a little bit about how you got involved with either Freedom Schools or the food pantry in Atlanta. Sister Ife, you're muted.
Thank you. As a member of the Shrines of the Black Madonna, we have a foundation of empowering our community, keeping our community's power towards self-determination and deciding what is of value to our community and how we're going to impart that value to our young people so that it continues just as our ancestors have done with us. And so I grew up in a communal family community environment where building community was essential. That is our life's blood, to share what we have, to learn as much as we can, to solve our problems together. All this is part of the Nguzo Saba, of course, not what we called it, but what we lived and what we do live. And so we take that wherever we go. And so a part of that is educating our children and sharing with our children this and developing in our children the skills and the knowledge that we need to develop our own gifts and our talents that we then bring to the community. And so Freedom School and Food Warriors are a continuation of what we've always done as a people. And being a part of that is what vitalizes me. And so when I became a parent, your parent, Ayo, I began to see the world differently.
Yeah.
In that I began to see children and their world and had a passion for bringing to them my love of learning. I am a science and mathematics teacher, and I wanted to make this a part of what I was doing within my community, not necessarily in a formal way, but that's just who I am. And so when Mama Hanifa shared with me the opportunity because we were already growing things, we were already focused on nutrition and well-being. We were already focused on the world around us, the natural world around us. So we just brought all of that together into the Food Warriors. And I was very, very honored, am very, very honored to be able to participate and in our children's and their parents and grandparents learning about how we do this together to ensure that we are all well. The Freedom School movement, I remember as a child when I grew up in Cleveland, and I remember as a child having school boycotts. And when we had school boycotts in the churches, we went to school and we learned the things that we were learning in and out of school together. The community ensured that we had a place to develop and grow intellectually and socially. And so having the Freedom School movement and being immersed in the public, not just the public, but the institutional educational system in this culture makes it very clear that we need and must have and continue the education of our children so that we all continue to know who we are and whose we are and how we want to be in the world and the world we want to develop and bring forward. And so my love of learning, my love of growing and living with other Black people to build a self-determined, self-reliant community, it's just natural that I would be a part of these programs in our community.
Thank you. Hey, Sister Kimada. Long time no see.
I know. I saw you just the other night, all of
I
you
know.
guys.
It's
was
good
wonderful.
to see you again. Good
Yes,
to see
it's wonderful to see the family again.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Well, I will speak on From My Hands to Your Hands on behalf of Sister Walmira. She said God gave her that name in a vision that she's always wanted to have a food pantry. And she was blessed enough to be able to get it started during a time when Atlanta needed it really, really bad, because what's unique about our pantry from other pantries that may be in and around the city of Atlanta, we allow you to collect for more than just one family. Most drives would tell you no more than 2 families, but we know everyone in the city does not have transportation, cannot get to it, so you rely on your neighbors to pick up food for you. And another special thing that's unique about us, we prepare a special package every other week for the homeless because they need to eat too. So we try to put toiletries and other things in a care package, especially for them. And they can come up and fellowship and everything. She partnered with someone called Midwest, where we get a lot of our products from. So every other week, we're giving away lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, cereal, milk. We never know. We get a range of things, even sweet treats for the kids and stuff. So I saw Walmira working hard. So every chance I get, I wanted to be a part of it and to step in and fill in the gap that she needed filling in. And it's truly a wonderful experience. You know, it's almost like the labors are few, but we get the work done. Especially we come together on Fridays, the day before the pantry. That's the biggest work day, to put the boxes actually together. And on Saturdays, that's when we pass it out to anyone that comes out. And it's to the point now where we have our regulars, because there are so many people that are in need, and to not feel bad about being in need, to know that we're here to help each other, because it could be either one of us that's in need that week for food. So it's truly been a joy, and I'm just amazed at the growth that the pantry has taken off, that Walmira has created, because it's nonprofit. We raise the funds through fundraisers or people donating to us. And she was able to buy a van, so we were able to collect more food, because now we have transportation, you know. So she's really doing an amazing thing with it, with the people that come and volunteer. And I just want to be a part of it. You know, it completes me and makes me feel whole. You know, I've been in the church 32 years and try to serve in any way that I'm asked to or can see where there's a gap that needs filling. And My Hands to Your Hands is a wonderful project. I still work, but if I'm off work on a Friday or Saturday, Walmira knows she can count on me to be there, no matter how long it takes. And it's a beautiful thing. So we're always seeking for more volunteers, more donations, and it's a good way to come and fellowship and meet people. We even have people that come and volunteer that's not a part of the church, but they are our family, because it is truly a community event.
Thank you for sharing about it's from my hands to your hands.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So thank you for bringing that to the discussion. I really want to highlight a few things that I've heard from each of you. And that's that, actually, let me pause for a moment because I want to say hello to everyone who's on Facebook and joining us from YouTube. Please join the conversation. If you have comments or questions or anything like that, please feel free to leave them in the chat and we'll make sure to bring you all into the conversation in that way. So ladies, I would like to just point out that I've heard a few things. One thing that I've heard is that each of you was already doing some sort of work, right? So the work was already happening. This isn't something that caused you to do the work. The gap or the need might have been, but this particular initiative that you're a part of was not the thing. I've also heard that it's a collaboration between people who belong to the initiative or the organization, but there's also a holistic approach that involves people from the community, whether it's parents or partner organizations or other groups or individuals who may have an interest in maybe not the same work, but the same result, which is filling a gap without people feeling a sort of shame or embarrassment or any of that that comes from having a need. And so if you could just talk a little bit about the value of community or how you've seen community play an integral role in the work that you're doing.
Well, we are community.
Mm-hmm.
We are together. I know as a member of the Shrine of the Black Madonna, we live a communal life every day.
Yeah.
And I think that Black people love to come together. We love to work and solve problems together. We get our energy from one another. Mm-hmm. And so I think that when we make connections, as Sister Kimata was saying, people come out of a need, but they are so glad to be together. It's almost like it's social nourishment. Mm-hmm. Yes. To come together, to share what we have with one another and to be strengthened by it. And so I think that if it's an individual, because we're always reaching out to bring others in, whether it's an organization that we are joining with to magnify the power of all people working together, it's always a good and powerful thing. And we learn so much from it. We figure things out together. We move our community forward when we make a way for needs to be met. Because once we make a way for needs to be met, then we begin to have a greater emphasis on our gifts and our talents and the things that we're passionate about.
And I also think that a part of that is when we come together in community, what we do is model for the larger community what is possible, and we disrupt that false narrative of lack and what we can't do, because what we show is that we have everything that we need.
Yes.
And the other part of that is, and this is a part of the, I'd like to say the founding principle of DBCFSN, the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network. those most impacted are the ones most qualified to create the solutions. And so the work that we're doing is a model for our community to see that, yes, we can, yes, we will, and yes, we are.
Excellent, excellent. Sister Kimana, did you want to add to that?
No.
Okay.
She said it very well.
Okay, so I've heard a couple of things. I love the term social nourishment. I think that just captures so well, just talking about the way that when the community gets together to make a way for needs to be met, right, then we are able to show our gifts and talents, because people find their way in, they get in where they fit in, right? So if I, am a good organizer, then I might be in the food pantry, making sure that things are organized so that the people who are good at presenting and sharing can put things together. Or if I am a good educator, then I know that I can bring that to the table because someone has already organized the curriculum and I'm here to help implement. So we see the way that those things fit together really well. And the other part of that is that, Mama HANIFA, is something you said about the most qualified for offering solutions being those who are most impacted, right? I do community engagement in my daytime job, and we always talk about how those closest to a solution or closest to an issue or something like that, have the most, they can often offer the most creative and the most direct and simple solutions, because it's things that when you think about it theoretically, or you're a little further removed from it, it's a little more difficult to just see those small things that can cause great change. And so with that, let's talk a little bit about, we've talked about nourishment, we've talked about community and connection, but I want to talk about the connection between nourishment and wellness and education. And that's in and out of the classroom, right? And so there are so many things that we learn, one, from engaging, but we know that being well nourished contributes to that. And so if we could talk a little bit about what those connections are, that would be wonderful. Or what connections you've noticed, right? So it may not be coming from an expert perspective, but maybe a witness perspective. These are the things that I've seen that I would like to contribute.
So, well, I'd like to speak to that, because when we think about nourishment, that's multifaceted. And so even when I look at the work that we do within the agricultural space, we are addressing a physical nourishment in that we are teaching how to grow and prepare healthy, nutritious food, but we are also being nourished spiritually.
Yes.
The whole idea of being engaged in nature, which is so very important when we talk about, and I have to speak on it from the standpoint of working with young people, with children, because our children are so bombarded day in and day out with stuff. And to engage them in the natural world, because it's not just about growing the food. That's important, yes, but it's about nurturing the spirit and to get them out in nature. And I just want to give this little tell this little anecdotal story. we took a group of kindergartners to D-Town Farm, right? And so one of the things that I like to do when I take the children to the farm, I like to find an area that is least impacted by the outside noises, the cars and whatever. And we sit on the ground and I have them to close their eyes. We sit in a circle and I have them to close their eyes. And I tell them to focus on the sounds around you, the natural sounds that you hear. And we'll do that for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And then we open our eyes and then we go around the circle and we talk about what we heard. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget this. And this was, must have been 6 or 7 years ago. But I will never forget this and the impact that it had on me. One of the babies said, "Mama HANIFA, I heard the ant walking on the grass." And immediately I was just overwhelmed, because we can debate about whether or not this baby really heard a teeny tiny ant walking on grass, but what we can agree on is something in her spirit was touched. And I love to tell that story, and I have so many more, but that one just it just resonates. And so when we talk about nourishment, I think we have to acknowledge the multiple layers, and then we have the physical nourishment. Then we have that spiritual component, and even the emotional, that emotional piece, because when we take the children to D-Town Farm, they get an opportunity to be children, running around that 7-acre farm. We've had activities at the farm, yoga at the farm, where you get kids from 5 to 15 doing yoga. So it's all of those layers that touch on, yes, yoga, that touch on all of the things that make us human and that contribute to our well-being. And I hope that answered your question, because I know sometimes
it did, absolutely. I think you highlighted the fact that it's all interconnected, that you can't say that there's, only an educational value or only a spiritual value, because the reality is that all of these things are connected, and, nourishment in one area does yield fruits in the others, right? So we know that if you've had a good night's rest and, an adequate breakfast, then you're likely to be more focused in school. But if you have had your spirit fed, then that speaks to something different, and that nourishes like confidence and the willingness to be curious and to learn. And so I think that you highlighted that in probably the best way possible, that story, just thinking about that, the idea of, I heard an ant, right? And I think too,
and to see her face.
I think too that it's important to point out her age, because I think the older we get, the more we tend to rationalize and make sense of whether or not that makes sense. And she may not have said it out loud if she were, 10 or 12 and someone had said, you can't hear an ant already, right? Like if she had that experience already, she may not have even verbalized that. So that right there in itself, just her ability to be in that moment and to express that thought, I think just really illustrates how valuable that is. We've got a couple of comments from YouTube. We've got a comment that says we are better together. And I think that just illustrates the sense of community that we all have spoken to tonight. We've also got my grandson's favorite foods are vegetables. He wants carrots and broccoli every day. I think that, we tend to think that children won't eat vegetables, but they'll eat what they're exposed to. And if you have normalized vegetables, then they'll absolutely eat them. I have friends whose children are vegan. They've never even had, so I think it just depends.
Yeah. And if they grow it, if they have an opportunity to prepare it, they will eat it. There have been countless times I've had parents to say, well, Mama HANIFA, they're not going to eat this, or they're not going to eat that. And I always tell them, if they grow it and if they prepare it, they will eat it. And another thing I'd like to add, if I could, we have before every, and Mama Ife can speak to this as well, but before every Food Warrior session, we have an opening ritual, and that's at, our Saturday program at the church. It's at our after school programs, but the children recite the Food Warriors Pledge. The first line of the Food Warriors Pledge says, I take pride in being a food warrior. Another line in that pledge says, I am open to new food experiences. Didn't say necessarily I'm gonna like everything that I try, but I'm open to new food experiences, and I encourage my classmates to follow my example. And so that's an opening for them to be able to express how they feel about a particular food, even though they may not care for it. They are open, or they allow themselves the opportunity to at least create a barometer by which to measure. And so we never use the word nasty. Never use the word nasty, because that's a judgment. But what you can say is, my palate has not yet acquired a taste for this food. That's acceptable.
Right.
And that openness, the experience of that openness is just that. It's openness. You're not open to just a particular thing. You are open to all of the riches of your life. And so once you become open to new things in that way, you release, if you have them, you release limitations.
Yes.
And when you release limitations and you're open to yourself.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
You are open to yourself, and you can experience your magnificence, because it's going to be reflected in your brothers and sisters.
Yes.
And the joy that you bring is the joy that they will experience, and it's going to be reflected back to you. And seeing that experience, that dynamic with children, is a magnificent thing. It is that it's holy.
And I was going to add to that. And when you were saying, when people come up and get the food and they see you out there in the cold, in the rain, early morning hours, they say, well, you're committed to doing this to a stranger. I want to know the God that's in you. And they come every week. So you're making a difference in them, that they may want to go out and help someone else. And it makes the whole world a better place.
Say that.
And you don't even
Say
have to
that,
say it.
Shemai. Right.
Yes,
You
You don't
don't.
have to
Give it
say
up.
it.
Right.
It's an
feel it.
experience.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because we're like, you sure you have enough? Do you need any more? You know,
yeah.
you're engaging, you're giving people something that they may have not gotten all week long.
Mm-hmm.
Someone is caring for me, nurturing me beyond
So
just the
bomb.
food.
Yes. Yes.
I think that point right there that was a perfect way to punctuate this kind of thought that we're talking about, is the idea that the work that you're doing, right? You're doing it because it's something you care about. It's an expression of love. You don't know necessarily these individuals, but it is an expression of love. And because they experience and feel the love, right? One, they recognize the value that comes from you and what you're sharing, but they also are willing to then express love through their own actions. And that is a community cycle that I think just it highlights the importance of nourishment on all levels, and how that ties into community wellness, right? We've talked about individual wellness, but this really highlights the individual contributions to community wellness. And so I want to just ask one more question. And then before I do that, I want to just highlight a couple of comments from YouTube. So we've got, that was so beautiful. We live, move, and have our being in nature.
Yes.
And that nature nourishes us, for we are an expression of God. And I think that those 2 points, those 2 comments really just further highlight what you all have just said. I don't think it needs to be kind of elaborated. I think that was it. Like that captured it. But I do want to ask you just one other question, and that's, in what ways have you seen self-determination grow or benefit from your work? I think we talked about that in a lot of ways, but I want to find out if you felt your own sense of being self-determined grow, in addition to the ways that you might have, seen that through your experience with the community.
I know for me, I've seen the self-determination just, and through the church and coming here, I'm doing things that I never thought I would do. The church has given me so many life skills: cooking, talking to other people, being a counselor. So I see all of that in working with the pantry. Again, experiencing different foods. I learned I won't say it's nasty. It's not my palate. So I learned the correct phrase to use if I try something. But I see the self-determination that every day, just a little something makes a difference for someone or for myself. And it gives me joy instead of just being at home, say, because it's my day off from work. I'm giving of myself in a more complete way.
Well, to answer that question, Ayo, I joined the shrine when I was in my early 20s. God willing, next month I will be 67 years old.
Yay.
Self-determination and self-reliance is all that I know, because that's what this church has taught me. And all that the shrine has poured into me, then it is my duty, my responsibility to pour into others. And so with the work that I do, it's more a calling, and it's about passing on all of those experiences that I have had, that I continue to have within my church community, which is an expression of the larger community of which I am a part. And I think that, and sometimes I get emotional, so y'all just have to bear with me.
Don't apologize for emotions. We're human.
that became so very I don't want to say glaring, but it became so front and center for me when we no longer had the training center. And I realized, but you take that community and you expand your community with what you have learned from that experience. And so again, I'm always looking at the multiple layers. And so when we talk about self-reliance and self-determination and what that means, it's about all of that. And again, my love of the work that I do comes directly from the experiences that I have been so fortunate to have as a result of the church, my salvation.
Yes.
Mom, would you like to add to that? I think that was.
Well, I was just thinking about, we are nature. We are natural.
Yes.
We are natural.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we are experiencing nature, we're experiencing part of ourselves. And it is natural to have a deep, driving desire to know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do, when you
Yes.
understand who and what you are,
yes,
you can be really clear
Oh, yes.
about what you have come here to give.
mm-hmm.
Because what we give, the more we're able to give,
Mm-hmm.
the more alive we feel.
yes,
And the more alive we are.
yeah.
And so when you were talking about, the children, when you grow the food and prepare the food, that means when you have poured yourself into something,
mm-hmm.
Yes.
you want to celebrate it. And believe me, we're talking about hard work.
Yeah.
What we do is hard work. And so I think that it is natural for the hard work to go hand in hand with the joy of the experience
yes.
of being able to give what you are to something or someone else, and to have that experience of the ways in which it then comes back into your life to energize you so that you feel your power. You feel empowered to do. So we are solving problems. We are creating newness.
Yes.
We are reconfiguring, sharing ideas. How you can run into somebody and you start talking to them, and the next thing you know, 30 minutes have passed. And you keep saying, okay, I gotta go. But in reality, that connection is making you feel alive.
Yes.
And I think that is what empowers me. That is what empowers me. I share with my students on a daily basis. I learn something from you every day. And they'll say to me, what do you learn from us? And when I share it with them,
Yeah.
you know, they are, oh, I did that? That came from me? They're not saying that, but they're doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that is something that we are teaching ourselves and each other.
Yeah.
Mm.
And understanding that our ancestors have left us a blueprint. If we but follow it, they've left us a blueprint. Yeah. Yeah.
The
There's really not much to say after that, but I'm going to try to find something, because I've heard so many gems and jewels. I don't know if anyone else has it out there, pen and paper, but you all see me looking down because I'm taking notes. So I don't know if you all are, but you might want to jot something down before you move on to the next thing and forget some of this. But you can always rewatch on YouTube. But I just, so many things you all said just in that last couple of minutes, I think just really emphasize self-determination, right? We've talked a lot about your involvement. We've talked a lot about the connections, but that the last point's about learning, and about the value of exchange, right? This is not just an output. You all aren't just pouring into cups, but people are pouring into you.
Exactly.
You know, Kimani, you talked about, right, it's exactly reciprocity. Kimani, you talked about people seeing that value in them, you know, acknowledging, thank you for your work and how it makes them feel and how it inspires them to go out. And, you know, Mom, you talked about that making you feel alive and it going out and coming back, right? And so and Mom Hanifa, you said something and I didn't capture the words, but what it made me write down was, when you love what you do,
oh yes,
not only do you do it well or often, but it is done excitedly and with such an energy that people feel, right? So it's not just people feel the product or the result, but people get that energy from it, and it makes them feel something too. So I just wow, what a rich conversation. A couple of things. We're reaching the end of tonight's presentation, or conversation rather. I want to get a little bit of information. If you can share how people can get involved. Sister Kimani, if you could talk about how people can connect with the food pantry, and then we could also talk about Food Warriors and Freedom School here in Detroit.
Okay. The next food pantry will be April the 2nd. It starts at 9 a.m. We pass out the boxes and all, but the main need is on Fridays at 11 o'clock. Friday mornings at 11 o'clock is when we start putting the packages together. And they can just contact the church on the website that we have here, and get the information to get in contact with Wamir, Sister Wamir. Fortunately, I don't have her information in front of me right now.
No problem. So if you're interested in getting more information about the From My Hands to Your Hands food pantry, visit the church's website, and you'll want to make sure that you look for that information. If you are looking to receive a package, that's April 2nd at 9 a.m. And if you are looking to help prepare packages, which is always welcome, then that will be April 1st, which is the Friday before, at 11.
Yes.
All righty. And so if you're looking to connect with either the Food Warriors program or the Freedom School here at the Shrine here in Detroit, then you'll want to reach or connect via www.dbcfsn.org. That's dbcfsn.org, or ADJUMAN, which I will spell for you, ADJUMAN. Again, that's HAD as in dog, JUMAN as in Nancy, at dbcfsn, same as the website, .org. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us on Facebook and YouTube. Mama Hanifa, you got a couple of early happy birthdays.
Well, thank you.
So thank you to everyone who joined. If I learned anything tonight, is that as much as it is a beauty and a joy to participate, it is also a duty and responsibility to model so that others can do the same. So take that with you tonight as you go on about the rest of your day. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful night.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
you. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everyone.
everyone.
Beautiful
Good
conversation.
night. Wonderful.
Good night.
All right.